This is a short video to talk about how to install Python and also install an IDE or integrated development environment to run Python on your machines. Okay, so this is the bootcamp version of it. So what I will recommend you to do it is try to install this after watching this video. Let's get to it. So the links for Python are all in these notes. If you go to the bootcamp notes at the top of the web page, there's an introduction. So if you click on the introduction, this introduction will have the links for our sessions, also sessions for the the links for the Python and then Python IDE. Now there are multiple ways to run Python. There are different IDEs or integrated development environment that allows you to run Python. But before you do any of that, I'm gonna actually give you a warning. One is the following. If you have a version of Python 3.7 or above on your machine, that should work, okay? If you do not have anything, I will recommend you use 3.7, but 3.8, 3.9 are also versions I tested with my code. They should work as well. Now, if you already have an IDE that you're using, that's perfectly fine as well. So use that IDE for Python. If you do not, I have a recommendation here, the link WingWare. So suppose you don't have any of these, you haven't used them. So the one version is you can go ahead and click on this and install. So let's do that. I'm going to do this on my Mac machine, so I'm using a Mac now, and I'll also show you how to do it on Windows machine as well. Okay, so you can use both. Since I have already installed these, I'm not going to run the full installation, but I'll show you the steps and what to check. Okay, so watch this very carefully and follow along when you're doing it on your own. Once again, let me remind you, if you already have a 3.7 and above, do not install. If you have two versions of Python on your machine, that sometimes create problems that we can solve, but it takes a little bit of debugging later. So if you have one version of Python, that's the really best option to go with. Okay, so let's click on this to see what the links will take. So the link will take us onto this page. You see that this is a little earlier version of this, but it's a stable version. It should work with your machines. Now from this, you're going to choose what to install depending on whether you're a Windows or Mac OS user. Okay, so here are the files. So for Windows, I will recommend, depending on your version, I will just use this executable installer. So just click on this and download and then run that. Okay, for Mac, I'm going to choose, this is a 64-bit, I'm going to choose the 64-bit installer. I think this is the version right here. I'm going to download that and let's see what the screen will see. So let's do Mac first. So let me go to downloads quickly to figure out where it is. Right here, Python 3.7. So I'm going to click on this. So what it will do is it will take me to installation page. I'll click next, and you can read through this. It gives you what versions will be. Okay, and I'll continue. Click on this, and I'll agree on the license, and I'll say agree. I think there's at the bottom there's an agree. All right, installation type. I'm gonna go installation location. I'll just leave it as my Macintosh HD. And I'll just go click on customize. Okay, right, so here's what I'm going to install. Right, documentation, all of this will come. Right, so it will install also something called a PIP, is Python package installer, so I need that as well. Okay, so let me close this. So let's go back. So what I did was basically click on continue, and then I clicked on custom. Okay, or you can go back to standard installation. All right, so let's go to install. At this point, it's going to ask me for my password, and it's going to go ahead and install. Okay, let's see what it will say. So you see, it's going to go ahead and try to install the version. All right, once I install, I can go ahead and test to see if I have my Python. So I'm going to go to terminal, right, on Mac machine. I'm going to go type Python. If I type Python, you see it says 3.88 because that's the version I had installed earlier. So I'm using that version. Okay. Now let me get out from here. So say quit. So let's quit. Now let's try Python 3.7. You see now 3.7 is over here. Now this is not what I'm recommending, so don't do this. Just have one version. So I have 3.8, but I also installed for you 3.7 so that you can see. Okay. Now let's quit one more time. Now this is for Mac machines. Okay. Now let's go also do the same thing on Windows machine. So I'm going to go to the Windows machine now. So I'm going to remotely connect to my Windows machine now, then do the same thing there. So I'm going to click on the same link. Once again, I'm going to click on this again. I think in this version I have 3.7 installed. So I'm going to click on this. And here I'll choose Windows installer, executable installer, and this is 64-bit machine. So I'm going to choose 64-bit. Alright, so let it run, download. I'm going to go ahead and run it. Alright, so you see now it says 3.7 is already here. It allows me to modify or repair or uninstall. Okay, so let me click on modify to show you which options to choose. So we want documentation, we want PIP, we want TCL TK. This is a package for graphics for later on use graphics access. Test suite, I'm going to install that as well. What I'm not going to install is this PY launcher. So what this will do is this allows me to run Python just like I did in Mac, just using, instead of typing Python, just using PY, and I do not want this. I'm just going to click on next. Here it says install for all users. Yes, I'm going to check that. Shortcuts for install applications, add Python environment variables, definitely check this. Precompile standard library, I'm going to check that as well. And I'll skip rest and click on install. Okay, so those are your options. So go back. So if you don't see those options, click on customize so that you can see those options. Okay, right, so we want PIP for later on installing packages. We want this for visualizations, and test suite we want, but we do not want PY launcher. Okay, all right. You are sure? Yes, I want to cancel. I have 3.7 already installed on this. So let's check. We'll do the same thing. Instead of terminal, now we're going to use command prompt. So I'm going to go ahead and actually search for command prompt to show you something. When I search for command prompt, you notice it gives me a command prompt, but it also gives me an option to run it as an administrator. Now this is a Windows 11 machine. So, and since this is given by university to me, I can run this as a user or I can run it as an administrator. So if you're the only user for your machine, you should by default be an administrator. But if you see this option, then choose this option. Okay, so that means you are not really the administrator. You may have administrative access, but you're not logged in as an administrator. So I'm going to run it as an administrator. So you notice when I do this, it gives me an option. So let me click on that. I think I'm going to do this, which is yes, right there. Right now it gives me this. You see that at the very top it says administrator. So we need that for installing some packages. Okay, so make sure that you have the administrator access. Now let's run this. I'm going to say Python. Alright, so give me a second. Alright, here we go. Let's give it one more shot. Alright. Let me do it right here. See, it's gonna again give me 3.71, and this is important. Okay, so make sure you have a single version you run it. So if you later on, if we had chosen that py launcher instead of Python, we could have called it with py. Okay, so I'm gonna actually get out of this. Okay, so let me close this. I'm gonna actually switch back to my Mac. So let's do that. So let's go back to Mac now. Right, so in the agenda, next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna install Wing. But do this after you install your Python and make sure it runs. Okay, right, this next thing is I'm gonna go ahead and run Wing IDE. So here, depending on your machine, you're gonna choose, it will actually pick the right version. So it's the installer, I'm gonna pick this and install. Right, once I do this, it will download and I can go launch that. Right here in my downloads, now I have to have installer for Wing. Double click on this and go ahead and install. It will install the latest version of free version of Wing. Okay. Since I have a version of this, I'm not going to install this, but this is what you do: drag and drop, and it will install a new version or latest version of Wing, free version. Once you do this, you should be able to go ahead and run your Wing. So it will put Wing right here, or you can go to your apps right here, type Wing, and it should come up. Okay. And similarly on Windows, you do the same thing. You install. So Wing will come up. Let's run this Wing. Now I have a file open already, but let me close that file quickly. Right. So this is the environment. So this is what we call an IDE. IDE allows you to have a Python shell where you can run Python commands, or you can create files, with extension py and save them and run them. So for instance, I can save this with this name and type here right for my first Python statement and go ahead and run this. You'll see that it's going to, let me save this first. It's going to go ahead and run it and print hello world on my screen. Okay, so either I can run it, write my code in a file, or copy this and run it right here as well. In the shell directly, I can run that as well. Okay, so again, we'll talk about all this, but make sure once you install, your Python shows up here with the correct version that you installed in Wing. Okay, if you do what I did, it should work. If it doesn't work, then you can send me an email tomorrow so we can see if we can fix your problem. Now, this is to run your Python code on your desktop or laptop machine, whatever machine you're using. Okay. Alternatively, there is also an online IDE that you can use. I have the link. If you go to home on our e-learning site, if you go to resources, I have the link right here. This is REPL online IDE. It actually is more than Python. It allows you to write many different codes online. Okay, it's REPLIT, REPLIT.com. And templates is actually where it's gonna give you. So I'm gonna go ahead and run this. So I click on this. So it will now allow me to write code and here. Now, of course, at this point, I'm a user here. So let me log out of this. So when you first go to this, actually, you can go ahead and start coding, and it will ask you to create an account. Okay, so you can sign up for educational products. So if you're a student, you should be able to also create an account here. Okay, or you can log in with Google or with GitHub or even with Facebook, but I did create my own username here, so I'm using that username. Okay, if you have a login, you can actually go ahead and use that login. Once you're here, you can also create a new Python project and give it a name. Right, here it gives you some random name, but you can actually say first project if you want. And now once you do that, it allows you to write code and see the results. Okay, so this is your IDE on the left side, and this is the output shell on the right side. Okay, so I can write here. So I'm gonna go to main and let's write the code. I'll just say print, just like I did. Print hello world, and I'm gonna go ahead and run it. You'll see it's gonna work right here as well. So this is another option. So go to, if nothing works, this option should be the one that you should be using during our bootcamp. Okay. All right, I think this is it. I'll see you on the bootcamp day. The links are all on the class e-learning site. Right, so here the Zoom links for our meetings are here. Later on, I'm gonna put also the recordings once this is completed. All right, take care. See you soon.